of the Learning Center District Board will please come to order. We have a quorum, and so we'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Well, welcome to all of you. As you know, we have this meeting on a quarterly basis, and we learn what the HEC is doing and has done for the past quarter. So, public comments? None. Okay. The approval of the consent agenda, which constitutes the minutes of the last board meeting in January.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have a correction.
Okay.
Well, I think it's a correction. On A3,
A3.
the discussion concerned the original advisory committee that the Learning Center had put together. And since I brought up the question, I asked, is that still in place? And then there's several comments here about chiropractic license training and banking schools and diverse populations. But I don't think we answered the question. And as I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, the answer was that the advisory committee is not in place at this time. But I stand for some clarification on that.
Megan?
Hello, and thank you. So the advisory committee at this point is not active, and that is on the to-do list for the Higher Education Center to actually reform that group as we revisit and focus on our next steps. And I'll go into that in more detail in my presentation.
Okay, so maybe then, Madam Chair, we would just add a bullet to that list there saying that the advisory committee is not active at this time.
Okay, advisory committee is not active at this time and will be reconstituted.
Correct.
Okay. Did you get that, Linda? I mean, Trish. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
With that correction, is there a motion to approve?
Go for approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have a report. Megan McGarity.
Chair Romero, board members, thank you so much for having me tonight. I will be joined here in a moment with Robert from Highlands, but right now I'm just going to jump right into my update. So this is now my 4th month in the job. My first presentation to you was 2 weeks into the job, so I've had a little bit more opportunity to get a sense for the Higher Education Center and learn more about what we're doing and how we're engaged in our community. There we go. So one of the first things that I came across with the Higher Education Center is our mission statement. And this is our current mission statement, and it is entirely accurate, but what I hear from the community and from students across the board is, who are you and what do you do? And this mission statement doesn't actually bring immediately to mind what it is that we're trying to accomplish at the Higher Education Center. So one of the issues is that it's too long and it doesn't really bring it home on what our mission is. We need that statement to change and align more closely with SFCC's mission statement, which I love because it's so memorable. And pretty much any employee across Santa Fe Community College can tell you what the Santa Fe Community College mission statement is. That's not true for the Higher Education Center. So what is the HEC? And in my estimation, the Higher Education Center is a bridge from one degree to another. It's a link between multiple institutions, and it's a conduit for Northern New Mexicans to grow into their own success. And we need a new mission statement that will capture the essence of what the Higher Education Center is, and I plan on refining that as we launch our own strategic planning process.
Right.
Great.
So right now, I'm working on a strategic plan with OPI, and we're trying to create just a one-year plan, and that's partly because I am an interim right now, and also because we want to bring the higher education strategic planning in line with Santa Fe Community Colleges. So as SFCC launches the big strategic planning process in this next year, we want the Higher Education Center to also launch their long-term plan at the same time so that we're in step with one another. And the permanent director should be encouraged to maintain this forward momentum as we go forward. One of the things that we've been working on are the procedures for policy 10-1, and I think it also, and we've had a lot of really rich discussion about the tensions between free versus paid space. And one of the things that's unique about the Higher Education Center is we're trying to balance our desire to serve our community, but we also need to be fiscally responsible. And we need to protect the assets of the Higher Education Center and SFCC. So one of the things that we're working on is developing a fee schedule so that our community partners who are getting free space have skin in the game. So for example, when we recently had New Mexico Workforce Connections at the Higher Education Center for a hiring event for the state of New Mexico, it was amazing. We had over 350 people attend. There were probably over 100 people just from various state agencies, and it was a wildly successful event. But there were some challenges as well. For example, on the day of the event, the state showed up and said, "Surprise, we need 5 extra rooms. Do you have those?" And they hadn't brought any office supplies. So they had no tape, they had no scissors, they had, none of those kind of basic stuff. And at the end of the day, my assistant was kind of chasing after people and saying, "Wait, we need our scissors back. Where's our tape?" And so we loved having them there, but also at the end of the day, because that did put so much pressure on the building itself, it was dirty. And we only had our regular POM staff doing their regular stuff. And they're incredible. They do amazing work every single day. And so, of course, everything was beautiful and perfect the next day. But I think if our partners had to contribute even a nominal amount financially, it would help them understand the impacts that they have on our institution. And especially when we have these last-minute things, which we often do, where we're coming in at the last second and we're saving the day with 5 extra rooms, there needs to be a mechanism for us to be able to address those instances.
So you're working on that.
So we're working on that. But it is, I think, important for us as we're working through our strategic planning and talking about the purpose of the Higher Education Center to balance and focus on exactly where our priorities should be. Do we want to become fiscally profitable, or is our mission really going to be focused on education and public service? I think there's a way that we can maybe balance those things, but I don't think we could do both really, really well, because a lot of people who come to the Higher Education Center are drawn to the beauty and the wonderfulness of the facility, but they're also attracted by the free space. And it's important, though, for us to work with our community partners so that we're not just giving the space away all the time. And so that's been one of my other experiences, is working with some of our community partners. We will actually be hosting the Tiger Woods Foundation in June as they come in and do a STEM training for teachers. But in our initial conversations, our community partners said, "Oh, and the best thing about the HEC is it's free." And I said, "Well, actually, it's not. Not always." And so Tiger Woods Foundation is a well-funded foundation, and they will be paying for the space that they're utilizing at the Higher Education Center. But it's a balancing act between, understanding the makeup of one entity versus another. For another example, we'll be hosting a community panel for the Chainbreaker collection tomorrow, actually. And the Chainbreaker Collective is a kind of nascent group. It's very much grassroots based. They don't have the finances to be paying for space. And so in those cases, we want to be able to provide the forum for the discussion about what happens on the Midtown campus and support those partners without charging any fees. So those are some of the things that we're working on, but also sort of wrestling with as we go through the strategic planning process.
So is this the Tiger Woods
The Tiger Woods.
Foundation?
The Tiger Woods Foundation. So we're really excited about the opportunity. We're super excited about the connection with the community partnership. But again, it was kind of this awkward moment where it was like, but we're not going to argue if you want to pay. And
Yeah,
because we haven't changed our rates at the Higher Education Center since 2016, it's not like it's expensive to come and rent space from us.
Yeah.
And so for some organizations, it's an easy reach, whereas for others, it isn't.
okay.
So next, I'll move on to the room utilization report. From the fall semester information that I showed you at our last meeting, and we'll take a look at it in a moment, I wanted to look at our data in a different way. In the information you'll see in a couple of slides, we looked at how our partners actually use the rooms. Originally, or in my last presentation, we just showed that like our Highlands partners and Northern New Mexico College, their room utilization is 100% based on their MOUs with us. But I thought it would be interesting to look at, well, how much do they actually utilize the space? I also wanted to show you some information about the different kinds of business that we do, including academics, events, tutoring, and also our SBDC customer support, because some of the other feedback that I frequently get from the community is, well, what do y'all do there? And so I wanted to sort of address that idea that maybe we're not doing anything. We're actually pretty busy. So this is from the fall 2018 semester, and as you can see, the dedicated space in purple there is for Highlands, and it shows 100% utilization, 100% utilization for Northern, and 100% utilization for the SBDC. And then overall, it was 62% for the fall semester. This is how it looks, and I'm sorry, I'm a little all over the place, so I apologize for that. I'm still working on putting all of this stuff together. But what we can see from this is that, for example, Highlands is not utilizing their classrooms 100% of the time, and one of the reasons that that's actually kind of a good thing is because it does allow us to communicate and partner with one another when we have last-minute crises where New Mexico Workforce Solutions shows up and needs 5 extra classrooms. And so it's a really, even if their classrooms aren't being used 100% of the time, they are so important in terms of our partnership because they are always there supporting us and helping us when we have these extra events. If you see on HEC room 207 and HEC room 205, those 2 rooms show at 99% usage and 107% usage. And that is because those were the 2 rooms that were dedicated for AARP. And that was, again, an interesting learning experience for us. Initially, we thought we would be able to use those classrooms for rentals or classes or anything when AARP wasn't there, but that turned out not to be the case. AARP has a lot of very specific technology needs. They need to keep their data private, and so it worked out that for those 3.5 months that AARP was with us, we could not make any use of those rooms. And again, that goes back to our fee schedule. We lost income from not being able to use those rooms, but we donated the space to AARP. It is absolutely a valuable community partnership, and we absolutely want them to come back next year. But given our IT resources, we provide them private shred services, it seems like there should be some sort of fee attached for the usage and lost income that we get from hosting them in those rooms for that long. One of the things that the Higher Education Center is really busy with is tutoring. And so we do a lot of tutoring for ESL students and with literacy volunteers. And there are logs of all of those tutoring hours. So as you can see here, we actually logged in April almost 300 hours of tutoring with students from SFCC. And these are the students who need our most help. These are adult education students and students who are learning English. And so I think it's important to recognize that the space is actually being used and it is serving a lot of people. This graph demonstrates just the total number of activities. So this includes classes, this includes separate events, it includes the every single day usage for AARP. So as you can see, January was pretty quiet, but February, March, and April, we were pretty busy with over 300 individual activities. And like I said, that's spread out over classes and other events. And it's getting quiet now in May, and we'll see it pick up again now in June. And then I wanted to include a little bit about the SBDC. From January 1st through May 9th, they have served 157 clients. 83 of their clients participated in SBDC training events. And based on their federal fiscal year data, they have created 27 new jobs and retained 172 jobs since October 2018. Moving on to our partners, UNM is an interesting partner. So we just got their 2018-2019 contract signed this past month. In my conversations with Terry Babbitt, he has indicated that UNM does not have an appetite to sign a new contract with us. But however, I feel it's an important relationship for us to pursue because our students want to attend UNM. And if we keep our focus on our students, then it's an important relationship for us to cultivate. And so I do think we have some opportunities to engage UNM in new ways. I've met with Tim Castillo, and he's the liaison to the provost for the Midtown campus. And we'll be meeting next week to discuss next year's contract and potential new programming. So Tim Castillo is in architecture, and his interest is in themed environment architecture such as Meow-Wolf. And so he's interested in programming around themed environment architecture. And how can we do that programming through SFCC and pipeline it into UNM? So we'll be starting those discussions next week. There's also opportunities to provide classroom space for management training. I met with Pam Coleman, who is the director for New Mexico State Personnel. She's engaged with Bruce Perlman at UNM. She wants Bruce to deliver management training for New Mexico State personnel, who happen to be mostly located in Santa Fe. So I spoke to Bruce just today, actually, and said, once you have your programming ready, I have space for you to lead these courses. And there's currently a contract in place with UNM. There's good reason to continue this contract. So I feel confident that we have some traction to get UNM to engage with us for at least one more year. And in that year, I would like to work with helping them understand what their vision here in Santa Fe can be. The other thing that I've discovered about UNM is because it's such a large institution, there are so many arms moving in so many different directions that getting that vision to coalesce is kind of a challenge. But there's a lot of goodwill and a lot of buy-in from lots of pockets at UNM to support programs here at the HEC and in Santa Fe. And we just need to find a way to manage and leverage those opportunities. And I definitely think they're there. Bellevue University is officially present, so we have their signage up. Mark Wood, formerly from our Office of Human Resources, started as the Bellevue Relationship Manager in April. They're just beginning their recruitment efforts, and so we don't have any graduates to report yet. All of their programs are online programs, so Mark is really just kind of out there meeting folks and working with students, and he's got 2 that he's working with right now, and we'll see what we can grow. We're looking at probably October for a grand opening event. The president of Bellevue is supposed to be in New Mexico during that time, and so we're hoping to take advantage of that timing to host a grand opening and have her come in and be with us. For Northern New Mexico College, they joined the HEC in 2017, and in 2 years, they've had 0 graduates from their programs. And so the good news is there's nowhere to go but up, and we're really looking forward to that. For the first time ever, they have a Title V grant, and they're in the process of hiring a recruiter to staff their office at the Higher Education Center. And because relationship is at the heart of every single thing that we do in higher ed, I think that's going to make all the difference in their numbers. So in this next year, my goal is really to work on those relationship building efforts. We've done some really great things recently with Highlands that I'd like to carry over for Northern. And I think just having a person there in the Higher Education Center who can talk to students and help them navigate the systems is going to be tremendous. And so I expect that by next year, I'll be reporting that we have some graduates. New Mexico Highlands, drag Robert up here as he's our partner. So we continue to grow and foster our bond. We had 86 students graduate from the Santa Fe Center this spring, even with our challenges in enrollment. We had a wonderful event with SFCC science faculty, and we got to go to Highlands and to their nature refuge, and we had staff and faculty meet together, and some of the things that are coming out of that are we're going to be working on an articulation agreement for the RN to BSN program. There's currently working its way through curriculum committee a proposal for a pre-forestry degree that will articulate into Highlands Forestry program. And we also hosted a social work social with faculty and leadership. And again, because we're going back to this idea of relationship, and relationship drives what we do. And so this was an opportunity to get faculty and administrators on both sides of the equation to just talk to one another. And we learned all kinds of interesting things, like we used some of the same textbooks, and maybe we can streamline how students access those books. Maybe they can purchase it once instead of having to purchase it twice if they know they're going to go to Highlands and need it again. So those types of things are events that we want to build on and further grow. And then this is a little bit of our data from Highlands, and Robert, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, just thank you for allowing me to come today. I'd like to come on a more regular basis and also bring some of our leadership with me as well, and even our faculty, if that's okay with the board. But first and foremost, we value and appreciate the relationship that we have with Santa Fe Community College across the board, from the excellent maintenance staff on up to the president and everyone in between, including the board. Your staff, your faculty, your team has embraced our staff, and most importantly, the relationship that the students garner when they come from the community college, which is our cornerstone of graduates. And so it's an awesome relationship, and I value and thank you for that partnership. Before I discuss a few of the numbers here, I also want to put on a different hat, a budgetary hat. So I've seen the minutes of your meetings, your board meetings and discussions relative to cost and fee and payment and space utilization. And if Mr. Baca, our Vice President of Budget and Finance and Administration, was here, he would be asking many of the critical questions that all of you ask at your board meetings. So the same way you're evaluating cost and space and utilization is exactly what Mr. Baca has asked me to do in partnership with our team. And we all know that modalities are continuously changing. And so we're evaluating the prior sheet that you saw up on the board earlier relative to classroom space utilization and whether or not we need that much space, and what we're going to do to adjust to the changing dynamics and needs of the students. And so I would say that because Mr. Baca, our Vice President of Finance Administration, said, say it. Please express that the same factors they're going through, we're going through. The other thing that quite frankly he asked me to share and to bring to the board is that one of the things that some of our leadership ponder is when we look into the Higher Education Center and see ourselves as the only partner that's been as robust as we've been, they frankly ask, how might we have more visibility relative to signage, relative to how marketing is handled? What else might we do collectively to enhance that piece? They walk in and see the same signs as our partners, and we value our partners, but then they ask, well, how many graduates do they have, and what else are they doing? And so respectfully, he said, deliver that message, and I respectfully deliver that message. Those things said, I want to get back to the students. It's the corpus of what we do and who we are. And although we face the same challenges you faced relative to enrollments, I want to highlight that these numbers reflect Santa Fe Community College and show some decline, but we have increases associated with MSW, for example. We graduated our first cohort of our Masters of Social Work students. We're very excited about that. About half of those graduates are SFCC continuing students that got their bachelor's degree. That's exciting. But we're getting a lot more people from the outside community that are coming in as well to get their master's in social work. We've had challenges, I'm not going to mince words, relative to some of our work in our School of Education, but we want to augment that program, and we want to enhance it, and we want to work closer and closer with the community college to do so. We recently got CACREP accreditation, which we're excited about with our counseling program, and we expect to see some expansion and growth in counseling, and we expect to see a reinvigoration of our educational leadership, which we had a bit of a downturn in, but we're working on with other cohorts and expansion of marketing and outreach. But those said, these numbers speak for themselves. We will continue to provide additional data sets. Our Vice President of Strategic Enrollment Management, Dr. Martinez, would like to come back, and he'd like to dive deeper into some of the numbers, especially related to the transfer students and the success rates that we know are present between your traditional student, 18 to 21-year-old, and your transfer student. We see a lot higher graduation rates with those 2+2 graduates than your traditional students. And so some of those facts that you're already well aware of from a community college standpoint, he wants to come and highlight, as does our Vice President of Academic Affairs, who I work for, Dr. Gonzalez. So all those things said, there's a couple things on the horizon that I wanted to bring up to all of you and let you know that we're actively going to be bringing back to show you of our commitment and partnership. We have a university studies program that's one of the offerings at Highlands, not only here, but campus-wide. We've seen an uptick in students in integrated studies. Essentially, that's what our university studies program is. What we're finding is more and more the workforce doesn't just want expertise. We were just in Los Alamos, and they expressly said, we need your business major students, but they also need systems training. And so we're understanding more and more that they want combined meta majors associated with degree plans. But with our university studies program, once it's ratified, we want to bring back that we want to articulate every Associate of Arts degree that you have here into that program. So that's one exciting thing. The next exciting thing is that our social work program, which is our most robust program along with business with the community college, our social work program has articulated human services, but our Dean of Social Work has said, we have taken in our psychology students from the community college. We want to make that a blanket articulation. And we also want to look at sociology and some of the other programs you might have to make, or psychology for sure, psychology and, which was the other one I just said? Sociology? Psychology and, we talked about, there's one other one, but general studies.
Oh, right.
You have an AA in general studies. So our social work dean has said, it makes sense, we take them in, let's memorialize that and make that a reality. So those are a couple things in the immediate pipeline. You saw forestry up there, additional sciences. We don't just want to figure out what else might we articulate to the Santa Fe Higher Education Center, but we want to articulate as many AAs as we can to main campus. And so that's the other commitment that Highlands University has said we want to work on and begin to make happen in a more robust way. Am I leaving anything out, Megan?
I'm going to share the mic there for a minute. I just want to add that it really is a pleasure to work with someone like Robert, who's so engaged in student success, and having that focus is completely fulfilling. And part of what Robert touches on is something that I think needs to be part of the strategic plan for the Higher Education Center in general, which is around this idea of articulation agreements. Right now, if you look at the articulation agreements on our website, they're grids, and they're complex enough that a student will look at it and go, I don't want to think about this. And so we need to find ways to make the articulation process seamless and painless to students, so that the student has that assurance that if they finish their AA in Human Services at SFCC, every single one of those credits is going to count to their degree at Highlands. I think we also have some opportunities with our students who may have accumulated a whole bunch of credit hours but didn't really settle into any one degree. What we've discovered is that those students sometimes have incredible opportunities to go to Highlands, stay for a year, sometimes maybe less, get a bachelor's degree in university studies, and then move into a master's degree. Students who never thought they had that potential all of a sudden go, in less than a year, I could be, working on my master's degree. It's a pretty incredible, eye-opening opportunity. I think the other thing that we need to focus on are the costs of college, and the reason why these 2+2 partnerships are so important really, really, really comes down to cost. A student attending SFCC who is fully Pell eligible can get their degree at Santa Fe Community College and not take on one single penny of student loan debt. The Pell Grant is enough to pay for all of a student's books, all of the student's tuition, all of the student's fees here at Santa Fe Community College. Now, of course, it's not enough to pay for rent or groceries or gas or any of those things, but it is enough to pay just for the costs of college. And the less debt that we can graduate students with, the more successful they're going to be in life. And if we focus on this idea that you won't have to take on any student loan debt until you start working on your bachelor's degree in year 2 or 3, or 3 or 4 rather, is, in a way, it's revolutionary, and is only going to benefit the people of New Mexico. And so working these partnerships out and making this easier for students to navigate the transition between the various partners at the Higher Education Center has got to be critical to our strategic planning.
Absolutely. Just to get into the weeds a little, business, School of Business, we've been going back and forth in discussions relative to, I think both our goals on both ends is we don't want the student to have to take any more classes at the 100 and 200 level than they have to. And so we were in some discussions on one particular class, business analysis, that we couldn't figure out how to make it work on this end, and we were requiring it on our end. Well, after a lot of debate and pushing and prodding, we finally changed that particular course on our end at Highlands to add some additional content and make it a 300 level course so that students aren't coming back as opposed to going forward. But those types of things on a daily and regular basis is what we're all collectively trying to achieve. We want to increase programs. We want to increase enrollment. One that I did not mention that we have active engagement from our provost on is an articulation into one of our health programs. So we have a health program that mirrors New Mexico State University's community health worker bachelor's program. I've looked at your numbers. I see where your graduates are, and I understand the need in this area would be valuable to have a bachelor's program in health. And so we're going to engage our faculty and your faculty and figure out if we can make that particular articulation work, because we know there's a need and we know there's a demand and we know we can try and help fill that. So that's another exciting opportunity. I'm happy to address any questions you might have and look forward to our continued partnership here in Santa Fe.
Thank you, Robert. Are there any questions?
I have a comment. I just wanted to thank Robert and for Highlands University's commitment to Santa Fe Community College, to our students. So many students that I talk with that are graduating are continuing on to Highlands. And I think that is due to the positive way you treat them and the way you do look at their coursework and accept it in transfer. I think that makes a huge difference in the possibilities of continuing their education and getting their degree. So I really want to thank you for the way that you treat our students in a positive manner to encourage them to continue their education. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Linda, did you have a question?
Yes, on the nursing program, the RN to BSN, how is that proceeding?
So we had an articulation with you all some time back, and in our discussions, and it actually evolved in the meeting we had when we had your science faculty come up and visit with some of our science faculty. We're committed to try and make it work. We know you had a relationship with the University of New Mexico and may still have that relationship, but we absolutely want to forge a partnership, create an articulation, and bring those students in. I mean, I can't say it any more different than that. Dr. Flood is on board to help us make that happen, and our provost is on board to help us make it happen.
So would that be classes taught here at the Higher Education Center, or would that be online like UNM's?
Well, right now, we have, that program is our only program that's 100% online.
Oh.
Now, we'd be willing to engage in a discussion as to the possibility of classes here in Santa Fe. I think, as you know, what would drive that would be what are the potential numbers associated with a cohort. I can tell you that if we can look at a cohort of 10 to 15 students per academic year, that might be something that's doable. But as you know, those numbers drive those things. But if that's the need, then that would be something that we would absolutely look at. Right now, it's our only 100% online program that we have that's not only online, but it's fully asynchronous as well.
It's important, though, in terms of our development and where we want to go next, to look at these RN to BSN opportunities. Because although the majority of our nursing students go into the BSN program, we still have some, not tons, not hundreds, but in the tens of students who go through the associate's program who are still interested in getting their bachelor's in nursing. And so developing and reviving the articulation with Highlands, I know Jenny is working on a couple of other opportunities, just gives SFCC students other opportunities for those students who, for whatever reason, don't do the BSN program. They can still do the ADN.
The UNM BSN program.
Right, exactly. They can still get their associate's degree through SFCC and continue on to get their bachelor's, but they might have that opportunity to start working right away because, so many of our students don't have the luxury of just being able to attend school. They have to work as well to support themselves and their families. And so, again, I think it's just another good opportunity to create pathways for SFCC students in multiple ways for them to achieve their goals in the way that suits their needs and best.
And I guess an expanded comment relative to potentially health-related programs, possibly BSN, is that we know that the cohort model, so there is this gravitation to online education and online modalities. We get that and understand that. We have a new online director that Highlands University just hired that we're going to be transitioning some of our programs into online modalities more and more. But our provost has said unequivocally, if the necessity is on ground, face-to-face, or some hybrid thereof, then we're absolutely interested in a dialogue and working to make it work. We know the cohort model with our social work program with your students is exceptional. And although it's still almost 100% face-to-face, BSW is 100%, MSW, we've made it a hybrid program, but we know it works. And so my constant quest is what other programs might we have that have the volume of students where we can collectively engage, the BSN piece is the faculty piece and finding the adequately trained and just finding the faculty, number one. But then how might we work together to possibly create or recreate a similar cohort model. I mean, we know it works, and we know it works well with your students, and
Yeah.
so.
Great.
Well, I would also agree that you are our biggest partner, and you probably should have a bigger sign or something.
Thank you for saying that. Thank
All
you.
right.
Well,
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, just a quick comment. So I too recognize what a great partnership we have with New Mexico Highlands that benefits, I hope, the both of us. And I think it's a healthy part of our relationship that we can have honest conversations about what we need from the relationship. So a partnership is more than just about being friends. Everybody has to get something and everybody has to give something. And I think the more transparent that process is to both of our institutions, to know that to see that we're both gaining something from the relationship and both giving something to it, I think the healthier and more sustainable of a long-term relationship we can have.
Yeah, absolutely, Madam Chair and Member Keith, your staff and team and faculty, I've said it and I'll say it 10 more times, they're exceptional. I mean, Megan and Marcos and the whole team, all of the deans and the staff that I've interacted with and faculty. And so we're committed to that 100%. We talked about a sign, a digital sign. Maybe the time has come where we can talk about a shared digital sign. I don't know. We still get the same feedback, even though we've been here close to 20 years doing classes with the community college. People still say you're in Santa Fe.
Yeah.
So whatever we can do collaboratively, in addition to what we've already done. We've done other ads. There's been wraps on buses that have included us. And
Sure.
there's been radio ads that have included us. So we recognize there's stuff, but I can go back now and tell Max, Mr. Baca, that I let him know that we're going through those same struggles, just to really quantify that. Our social work program in Albuquerque is one of the strongest that we have. But our board made the decision to go ahead and transition, because of costs, from that particular site in Albuquerque to do some co-location with CNM, which I think is an awesome thing, but also some administrative shift to Rio Rancho. It's going to be tough because we've been there for 15 years in that facility, and we're not going to be able to afford Rio Rancho, that space, and potential co-location. I think what's going to come out of co-location is probably going to be better for us in the long run with CNM, but we've been in that facility for 15 years, established a relationship, and we're going to be moving in June. So trust me, our Board of Regents has already had to make some difficult decisions that will have some impacts. Some will be negative. We'll just have to work through those.
Didn't New Mexico State also take their program out of Albuquerque? Because they were in the building right next door to you.
They
Or
moved,
they still-
New Mexico State moved their master's program from that particular area, but
Yeah.
they actually co-located on the Montoya campus for CNM.
Oh,
So
okay.
that, I think that actually was a good move, right? The more we can collaborate with our community colleges and
Right.
do what we know works here, the better we are, I think, collectively.
Okay. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
All right. Board reports, other business? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay. Now we're on to our regular meeting agenda. We have a quorum. Welcome, everybody. Let's see, I think we needed to switch something on the agenda. Oh, we want to put the trades and technology overview above the enrollment report. Is there any other change?
Say that again.
Okay, move the trades, advanced technology and sustainability program overview above the enrollment report.
With that change, I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, public comment. I bet we have some? None? We have none? I thought I saw people signing. Okay, President's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. It is my pleasure to begin with our Employee of the Month recognitions. Oh.
I'm sorry.
I was just, that's what I was getting to. That's okay. Yes, I am getting to the Employee of the Month. And for the month of April, we have the Pass It Forward Award, and Rod Hassan from OIT was nominated by Melanie Cebada from the Welcoming and Advising Center. Are either Rod or Melanie here? How about, do we have any comments from them? Not from them. So congratulations to Rod, and thank you, Melanie, for nominating him. We go on to our WOWgram, and Jenny Valdez in Student Development was nominated by Susan Johnson from Student Accessibility Services. Is either Jenny or Susan here? But we have a comment. Okay.
This is from Susan Johnson. I nominated Jenny Valdez for the WOW recognition because in my experience with her, she goes above and beyond the expectation for student support and customer service. I find that Jenny works with her colleagues in a very professional way. She supports students with her wealth of information around campus, resources, and recently when Jenny was able to give guidance and support to me and my student, she came back a couple of hours later with community resources for my student to seek. Clearly, Jenny continued to problem solve and support even after our initial meeting. Thank you, Jenny, for being you and supporting us all in your role at student development. You make SFCC look great.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to Jenny, and thank you, Susan, for nominating her. So I'm going to move on to the interim president's report for the month of May. And on May 9th, we had our long-awaited renovation celebration for the William C. Witter Fitness Education Center, because we had to postpone it when was it, in April because of the snow. But we had a very lively and well-attended event on May 9th. We thanked our supportive community members and honored the memory of our late former president. So people got tours. We, of course, recognized the family of President Witter, and then we had a ribbon cutting, and as soon as the ribbon cutting occurred, we had a flash mob dance, and to Zumba was about maybe 20 people that were dancing, and we had lively music, and people absolutely were thrilled to have they called it they loved our entertainment. And Vice Chair Sullivan was there with his wife Vicki, and he didn't dance, but he enjoyed it. People really enjoyed it. It was very a big celebration, and that's the way it should have been, because the center absolutely got a fabulous facelift. It is much more inviting and updated, and just it looks beautiful. So thank you to Henry and his staff, Andrea, so many people that contributed towards the remodel, and they're anxious to spend the second $1 million from our bond money to do further improvements. Moving on, another big project underway is our ATC, our Automotive Technology Center, and it is moving along. One of the neat things is that our architecture faculty member, Jeremy Meir, serves on the advisory committee and is bringing students into the design process. So, I mean, that's just sticking to kind of an effort that we've had over at the Trades and Advanced Technology building, whereby it's a learning community, and that's the process for designing and building our ATC is the same way. Our SIA construction manager at risk is Enterprise Builders Corporation, and we're planning our groundbreaking for June 26th, a month from this meeting. It'll be our next board, before our next board meeting. So we've talked about the different work that we've done from our bond money for Trades and Technology Center, the greenhouse, for other learning spaces. And on the list is the woodworking studio, which we're doing some improvements in the ventilation system. And then we have others that will be underway. Moving on, again, because May is, the end of the academic year, there's a lot of activity, a lot of celebrations. Of course, students are at the center of the celebrations. Good news in that our engineering technology student, Sarah Langtot, has been accepted as a summer intern at Holloman Air Force Base. And she also had participated in an internship at UNM through our college's PILAS, or internship program. Earth Day, we welcomed the arrival of Ethel the whale in partnership with Meow Wolf that covered $350,000 for relocating Ethel from California. And we had a great celebration. Thank you, Chair Siegel, for welcoming everybody on that windy day. And we got a lot of press from our welcoming of Ethel, widespread coverage in even the London Times, Albuquerque Journal, and the New Mexican, as well as PBS and KRQE TV 13. Our VIVA program, fitness program that reinforces academic success and retention and completion, is continuing. We had an average of about 70 visits per week during the spring semester into the fitness center of our full-time students, and we're continuing the program into the summer and next year. Congratulations to the Respiratory Care Program. They received the Distinguished Registered Respiratory Therapist Credential Award from the Commission on Accreditation for Respiratory Care, COARC, and our program was one of a select group of programs to be recognized with this award. And we really congratulate Rebecca Jetz and Jeff and all the other faculty and staff in respiratory care. So there's a big change underway in terms of across New Mexico colleges. We're working together to offer courses with the same name and number system. So welcome and advising and marketing and public relations, coordinating the messaging on this change in course IDs, codes, and titles for classes, and that is effective in the summer. And there's a listing of some of the examples of changes that are occurring in the course numbers that we're helping our students recognize when they register, because there are big changes underway. We congratulate chef instructors Jerry Dakin and Patrick Mares from Culinary Arts as they volunteered for the Greater Santa Fe Restaurant Association's 4th annual Chef's Gala. And there were students, Emma Keener and Josh Rodriguez, who also volunteered. And as a big surprise, the program received an unexpected $10,000 award from the Greater Santa Fe Restaurant Association, and that money will support the SFCC Foundation's Culinary Arts Scholarship. Going back to the Witter Fitness Education Center, it qualified for Santa Fe, the final round for the Santa Fe Reporter's Best of Santa Fe in the categories of fitness class, Pilates studio, weightlifting, and yoga. Winners will be announced in June. We had a wonderful Native American club coordinated Native American Week, and Marvin Gabaldon helped, and that was held, April 29th through the 2nd, and we had, of course, dancing, presentation, an art show, and the Santa Fe New Mexican covered the Red Sand Project as members filled the cracks in the courtyard with red sand to honor the missing and murdered indigenous women. So we had a lot of clubs and programs that held sales, such as the Glass Club. We had the School of Liberal Arts continued its readings in the library. Emily Stern coordinated and emceed the Kate Besser Creative Writing Awards, which was held at Meow Wolf. Both Dean Jacobs and I were present. It was really, there was a great crowd there, and I didn't even know there was this all-purpose room in Meow Wolf that's away from all the stimuli. But it was beautiful, the readings and the participation and the celebration of our students' wonderful creative writing work. So there's other things that you can read regarding other celebrations, and I think I will close my report and ask if there are any questions.
Anybody? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I have one thing, real quick. Because it was just yesterday, I attended an event at Los Alamos National Labs, and at that event, several of the secretaries, cabinet-level secretaries, were present, and they were getting updated about different things at the lab, economic development related, but also partnership and workforce development related. And so I was able to talk about our STEM Core program, which is underway in the recruitment stage right now, recruiting students to enter an accelerated STEM Core program in order to, they can, even if they come in as remedial students, because of the nature of this program that has been underway now for 4 years. It started in California, but we are just beginning our involvement, and we're going to have a cohort of students that will become calculus ready by the end of one semester. And we are hiring, with the help of an NSF grant, a student support specialist that will work with them to help them succeed. And I shared about that program with colleagues from Northern New Mexico College and UNM Los Alamos yesterday. So now that's really all, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then next on our agenda is our presentation by all the trades and advanced technology and sustainability people.
While they're getting ready, can I just add that last month we had a wonderful tour of the greenhouse, the brand new greenhouse, and due to that fine presentation, the board became very, more interested, I guess, in the programming. Consequently, we asked Dean Bustamante, Associate Dean Gandara, and the rest of her team to update us on more of the programming in Trades and Advanced Technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cervantes, Chair Siegel, and board members. Thank you very much for the opportunity for us to highlight the programs with the Trades, Advanced Technologies, and Sustainability after your visit to the greenhouse. I'm incredibly proud of the work that the people who are sitting with me at this table do and how we support students, but frankly, the cutting edge work that is really done on this side of campus. We just returned from a trip to San Juan, Puerto Rico, where it was absolutely evident that the type of work that particularly these gentlemen and Ondine do, the impact that it makes on people's lives and what it really means to sustainability and resilience in this world. So we have with us today Associate Dean Brooke Gandara. I asked Luke will give us some information on the relationship between the Innovation Center and our Trades and Advanced Technologies program. And we have Chair Dr. Stephen Gomez and Ondine Fraunglass, who really manages, coordinates, and makes sure that all aspects of the details are worked out, that we have what we need when we need it, that product process is moving fluidly, and it's a very important and critical role at our institution. And the last time I did this in public, I just jumped us right out of the thing, so if I mess up, I'm doing it. Oh, it did it. Okay. Technical, I'm really technically skilled. We have approximately 441 students in all of our programs collective. We'll give you a little bit of a look at which programs we have in this particular area. 33% of those students are female. This is a skewed number, and I'll explain that in a little bit. We have 61% Hispanic. That, again, is also a very skewed number, particularly out of the welding and automotive. Not so much in our biofuels programs. We don't see those as many. So the number isn't necessarily across the board. We know that in our trades programs, we do have more of the minority population. our early college opportunities programs. Really, we see significant enrollment there because those programs are out of the early college through the Santa Fe Public Schools, and those programs actually keep us with our building and construction trades. We have not had building and construction trades enrollment to the full program on our main campus, but out of the early college opportunities, that's where we see our primary students at this point. Our average age student is 27 years old.
Good evening. Thank you, Board, Madam Chairs, and Madam President. I am Dr. Gondera, Associate Dean in this area. And my role is largely comprised of working collaboratively with faculty to interface and schedule courses in our degrees and certificates, of which you can see there we have 5 associate degrees, AAS degrees, and the associated 22 certificates that belong with those degrees. I also work directly with the department chairs and the faculty leads in this process, and we have been diligently working to align sequences, degrees, certificates, and schedule to best work to serve students. We're finding growing success in some program areas by developing strong cohorts, and on the next slide, if you would, there is a map reference that shows where all of this fits, and this actually was created by Dr. Gomez as a visual to show exactly what's going on over in our area in terms of our degrees and certificates, the certificates that feed in, the number of credit hours that are required for those degrees and certificates, and it also kind of reminded me of, it seems sort of like organic in its creation. It's sort of from the bottom up to the top. And it's a organic model that's evolutionary in terms of the stealth STEM pieces of things that are taking place, and I'm sure that Dr. Gomez will talk more about stealth STEM.
In these areas, we enjoy a bit of external funding, specifically out of the BEAM TC, our EDA. I'm assuming that you might have wondered what the big Economic Development Association sign was in front of the greenhouse, and we can be more specific. What exactly is this paying for? That BEAMS TC grant, which we had incredible assistance in writing, both with Henry Mignardeau, our plant operations manager, and I think I saw Bill here from Siemens, who really worked with us to get this grant. We have a required match for this grant for all of the infrastructure. This is equipment infrastructure for both parts of the microgrid, but really the aspects of the nanogrid and the technical elements that we'll need for ensuring that our greenhouse can be islanded from the microgrid. So if you, during your tour, I'm sure that you heard a bit about how we don't want to be reliant on the macro grid for the greenhouse operations. If you've had the opportunity to meet Oscar, he is a lone survivor of, I'm sorry, I get really emotional when I talk about this part because Oscar used to have family and he lived when others did not. And we're not going to ever let that happen again, even though we could use more Oscars. But anyway, that was a little drama for some entertainment value. That's $351,000, which is our federal. We have the match that is brought in both with other funding that we have for our operations, but as well through Siemens. We have our New Mexico EPSCoR grant. The New Mexico EPSCoR grant is for the smart grid. That project is with New Mexico State, University of New Mexico, and EPSCoR is out of UNM, and New Mexico Tech. And out of that funding, we are going to get a hire for a microgrid expert specifically for our our distributed energy programming. That grant is $597,000 over a 5-year period. And then we have the VESTA grant, which is funding us to support wine and grape curriculum. We have not developed it yet. We're working, well, actually, that's not true. We've sent it through the curriculum committee, but it doesn't pay for faculty. We will be working this program through adjuncts and through Chair Gomez's leadership and through the organization and coordination from Ondine as well. a little bit about our microgrid, and I won't speak to every detail here. You're probably familiar with that. It is not yet a standing program, but it is something that is integrated into, as you're all familiar, our infrastructure is a living laboratory at Santa Fe Community College. The microgrid is a unique system that will allow us, and what made us the ideal player at the table with the other four-year institutions, and frankly research institutions. These aren't just at the baccalaureate, but as we have master's and doctoral students working with us on that EPSCoR grant. We have the infrastructure, so we're very much a valued partner, at that table. And I won't speak to each detail here. Our goal would be to be food and energy sovereign. Dr. Gomez is going to talk a little bit about sovereignty, the relationship between sovereignty and sustainability, and how sovereignty really helps with resilience.
I'd like to thank the board and the president for giving me a chance to actually say what we're doing and let you know. So this is the latest version that we got from Siemens at their 90% IGA report. And it basically shows the campus that we're going to be able to not be hooked up to the grid. And hopefully we'll be actually someday be able to put energy back into the grid. So here's a little poster I made for the legislature a few years ago showing that, you know, energy, water, and food are all hooked together and that all our programs work with each other. I mean, one of the nice things about everybody, when I talk with agriculture people, they're like, well, how'd you build that nice thing to grow your algae? I said, I just went down to the welding lab and they built it for us. So there's a lot of things that I just get built that other people have to order and put in purchase orders and get people to build. And I just went down the hall. And we have plumbers that know you don't use copper when you're growing fish, you know, so those things have been integrated together. So here's the campus map from space and sort of all the things we've been trying to do. We make alcohol. We have to adulterate it by our ATF agreement, so no one can come in and sneak some. One of the things that was kind of funny with one of our students, he figured out that Dunkin' Donuts throws away 500 pounds of donuts a week. They're old. And so he started picking up those donuts, and our little lawnmowers really do run on Dunkin' Donuts now.
What runs on Dunkin' Donuts?
Our lawnmowers, everything we put the alcohol in for fuel.
So the donuts make alcohol?
Make alcohol. He's used those for the mash.
What, the sugar?
Yeah. There's a lot of sugar in donuts.
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
We have the algae test bed that has been there since Luke started the program. We have the culinary garden that the students run. We have worked with the National Center for Genome Resources and the Girl Scouts for a citizen science program. So we take them out by the wastewater pond and let them collect algae, and they take the physical data. And every once in a while, a tarantula will come out, and half the girls will run away, and the other half will run up and go look at the tarantula. And I try and get the names of those that went up and ran and looked at the tarantula. We have Spartina. They have moved, but we had them for a while to grow switchgrass for biofuels. We're working with Ecoponics to build a new type of self-contained greenhouse system, commercial. We have the power and water that are on the roof. We collect the solar heat, and we collect the water to put through the toilets. We have the campus array that everybody knows about. We have our wastewater treatment facility that we're going to have to modify, but we would still like to be able to use part of it. I'm actually working with Los Alamos and UNM to set up a test facility in the drying beds for looking at anaerobic digesters to make biogas. We have the anaerobic digestion. We have the microfarm, the algae microfarm that Luke will talk about. We make our own biodiesel out of the French fry grease, and so we don't make enough to completely run our fleet, but we make enough to supplement the diesel. We have a pyrolysis, so we can take wood chips, and we can't run it inside because the smoke is too thick,
But when you run it outside, we can make, with one barrel of wood chips, we can make 10 kilowatts for 6 hours. So you could run basically 4 or 5 houses for 6 hours, 50 gallons of wood chips. The boilers are going to be going away, and our new the new microgrid that Siemens has come up with. And then we have our little farm pod greenhouses that are commercial that we're testing here. They gave it to us to break, and we're working hard at breaking it. And here's the new greenhouse with the microgrid, or the nanogrid actually. I should have put the new picture in there because we have the new switchgear box in, which is about 10 times bigger than the one that's already there. And we're currently 70% energy sovereign. And I'll go over a little bit of why we use the word sovereign. There was a time a few years ago I was talking to the tribes over at Jemez about doing energy projects, and we were always using the word sustainability. And sustainability has become a word that doesn't really mean anything. Everybody has, it's a catchphrase, everybody has their own definition. Part of my class was you had to articulate a definition of sustainability. I'd get 20 answers and they'd all be right. So what I started explaining to them was that it made sense was looking at what I would call the 5 sovereignties: energy sovereignty, water sovereignty, food sovereignty, land sovereignty, and environmental sovereignty. And those I can actually put numbers to. You are 100% land sovereign. You only have 4% food sovereignty. In fact, Jemez Pueblo is 6%. Their closest supermarket is in Rio Rancho, so the carbon footprint on their food is huge. But when I put it in those numbers, they all understood exactly what I was talking about. And I've been working with an economics professor at UNM to how to actually codify that so you can put numbers in there and then say, okay, if you're 70% sovereign in everything, then you're sustainable. And so we've gone away from teaching sustainability in the sustainability classes and teaching sovereignties. That's what I mean when I talk. Oh, there, I do have the new switchgear. So I did put it in there.
Oh, there it is.
You see it's a much bigger box. So this is the nice array that we have. So the campus is, we estimate 90% land sovereign. The county can still tell us to do some things. We're 20% water sovereign, and we hope to be 50% water sovereign by 2020. We're 30% food sovereign, and once we get the greenhouse up and running, we hope to be 100% food sovereign by 2020, at least in terms of vegetables. And we're 70% energy sovereign right now, and by the end of 2020, we hope to be 100% energy sovereign. We won't have to buy anybody's electricity. And this is sort of, as the solar panels came on, you can see the green part is our own electricity. And so you can see in just a short period of time that we displaced a large amount of purchased power, which was coal mostly, and now we're making our own solar energy. And sometimes during the day, especially during the summer, the campus is completely run off solar energy. This is the project we had when I first started here. We kind of wormed our way into the EPSCoR project on bioenergy and algae. And we started working with all the big universities, Los Alamos and Sandia. And so now for the current EPSCoR project, which is the microgrid project, we're sitting at the table as an equal of the universities. We're not the poor stepchild anymore. And I think we're the only community college in the country that's in that position in terms of EPSCoR projects. And so this is the last EPSCoR project that's finished, but we're still generating data and papers and turning into the NSF. This is our DOE project with the Bioenergy Technology Office to create a curriculum for teaching algae cultivation. One of the things that they found when they first started building the algae companies is you can't run a production facility with 29 PhDs. Just can't afford that, and they don't fix it either. But there is no trained workforce, farming workforce. And so we were given the task from the Algae Foundation and the Department of Energy to come up with a curriculum for training technicians in algae cultivation. And so these are all the partners. Currently, there are 7 other community colleges that are waiting to use our curriculum when we get it all finished. And we've been sending students for internships and getting jobs, and Luke will talk about them when he gets up to his part. So Camille explained a little about stealth STEM, the approach we take, and this is something that just came out of necessity to make our programs work. So the students entering our programs in the trades aren't here for an education, okay? They're here to get a job. And anything I do in the way to make them not get a job is seen as superfluous and just stealing money from them. So the traditional sort of academic system does not serve what they want to do. In the traditional order, when you think of a college, is you come in and take all your general education courses, your freshman and sophomore years. Then you get to take the core courses, you know, your sophomore and junior years. And then you take your specialized courses, and then you get your degree. Okay. Those are why the students came back to school. They want to learn a specialized technique, something they can get a job at. So teach that first. The problem we had when I first got in is students would come in and say, why do I have to take all this English and math and stuff when all I want to do is make biodiesel? And so now I just go make biodiesel. Okay. And so the way this has turned out to be is first semester when students come in, I get all this stuff. You know, I don't need biology. I don't need any math. Why do I do chemistry? I just want to grow plants. So what we do is we say, you want to grow plants? Go grow plants. Okay. And then they're the topics that they came to learn. So put them hands-on doing what they want to do. Then give them enough rope to hang themselves. Okay. The other thing we have to stress is that F does not equal failure. F means you're just not ready to go to the next class. Okay. One of the problems we have is a lot of students that we have been told their whole life that you're not college material or you're not ready for this. And an F confirms that they're not ready for, they're not college material. And I just say, no, it just means you're not ready to go to the next class. The second semester, I end up with students going, my chemistry class is full, what do I do? People who swore to me they would never take a science class. And what it is all during the first semester while they're doing their stuff, whatever they're working on, you know, if you'd had a chemistry class, you'd know how that works. I don't have any evidence that they do better in chemistry, but I do know that they only take it once now. They're not taking and dropping and taking and dropping. They take it once and move on. So we found the students who discover they need STEM courses do much better than students who were told they need STEM courses. You know, I don't have to answer the question, why am I taking this anymore? They already know. The other thing we found out through this is paid internships are the best retention tool that we have, especially for this from first year to the second year. You know, most of the students on campus have kids and jobs, and if they get a job during the summer, we run the risk that they don't come back. But if we can pay them to work at school, you know, to do an internship project, you know, a lot of times I get, you mean I can get paid to do this? You know, I go, yeah, you can get paid to do this. And it keeps them back for the next semester till they finish. So here is some of our algae students. They're working on a project that's a real project we have going on with BHP Billiton, the big mining company. They have legacy mining sites down in Grants that have a lot of radioactive soil. And so they have to clean it up. And one of the things they want to do is see if they can use algae to remediate the contaminated water. And so I've been down there 3 times now and collected samples. And our students are the ones growing up those samples. They're starting from the dirt and we're growing out plates and they cultivate them up and make them bigger. So all of this stuff is student driven, or the project is mostly student driven, and hopefully when we find something cool, a lot of them will get papers out of it. This is switching gears over to the energy side of it. 2 summers ago, I did a faculty sabbatical at Sandia National Labs in the Energy Storage Division. And the Department of Labor predicts there's going to be about 14,000 jobs for redoing our grid. And that doesn't count all the people putting in new smart meters. Okay. And for the ESAT project, which is the Electrical Energy Storage, I forget anymore, it's another DOE acronym. They wanted me to work on an energy storage course, which I did during that summer. And then at the end, at their peer review, they wanted me to run a workshop on what the skill sets of those people would be. And so here's sort of the non-research people. And so we came up with the idea of here's a local grid workforce, and you have those that are going to work inside, which will be mostly your SCADA analysts and your computer security people, and those that will work outside, the network people and the linemen. And so we kind of had to decide what the skill sets of each of those were, and we did I had a Sandia paper out of that. And we've had a whole lot of help with Siemens coming on. They've brought up curriculum, and so we're going to meld all this into the new course in microgrids. And so this is just a picture to sort of let you know this is where our food's going to come from. The Greenhouse Technologies program, or the Controlled Environment Agriculture program, as it's called now, has been taking a lot of students. And as you can see, they go from teenage kids to septuagenarians. I mean, we had one class in one of my algae classes, 3/4 of the students were over 70. And they were teaching, it was kind of funny because they were teaching the young 18-year-olds how to get along with life, and the 18-year-olds are teaching them how to use their phone. And that's what I have to say, and I'll let Luke get on with his part.
I'll just take this.
I'll just swap you.
All right, that works for me. Good evening, Madam Chair and board members, President Cervantes. It's a pleasure to be here and explain a few of the things we're doing. We could be sitting in here for multiple days with all the projects we have going on. I am the director of the Santa Fe Community College Innovation Center, and I've also run the Biofuels Centers of Excellence for about the last 8 years. All right, let's see if we get this thing going. The mission of the Santa Fe Community College Innovation Center is to support an entrepreneurial ecosystem. Those are the assets that we currently have in our region. Integrating sustainability programs and providing synergistic benefits for students, industry partners, in the community. And as you can see, we've done quite well in a few short years with some really big players, and we also are negotiating with a lot of other companies now. One of the primary focuses has been from the beginning is to assist in advanced biotechnology, new agricultural and high technology entrepreneurs from throughout the world, and provide SFCC students with unprecedented research and experiences and internships. So Steve was talking about our students who actually had 2 community college students last summer that published with UNM and Steve in an annual journal that most PhDs would die to have their name in, an algal journal that was published by Los Alamos, of all people. We had a recent student, Zach DeLay, Espanola student, is working at NREL for the entire summer and has a college offer to go to NMSU. We had the same thing for another student last year, so we're developing a pipeline for these students. There may not be an algae industry, but there's a pipeline for these students. And we had another student just graduate the other day, Giovanni Echeve. He's 17 years old. He came into our program as a homeschooler. His first school experience was in the biofuels lab in our building. He just got a full scholarship to Butler University, where he's going to study a dual degree program in dance and sustainability. So it is impacting our students. We are considered in the building, we're considered a terminal degree, but we don't see that holding us back at this point. So these are some of the partners, of local partners that we have working with and this is constantly in flux, and people are growing. Some people drop out. Steve listed a lot of these. You'll see a lot of our tribal partners here and institutions on this slide right here. I want to talk about 2 companies tonight that are in our innovation center. One of them is NTX Bio. They were just nominated as one of the top 10 innovation drug companies in the world. If you look there, people ask why we have NTX Bio on campus. If you look at their process, they produce 1/100,000th of the contaminants produced from medical products currently in the industry. In New Mexico, they could produce 80% of all the vaccines for the United States in a 5,000 square foot space. That's how far they've come along. I'll share this with you. They have had no problem finding funding and resources. I think some of the board members actually know the folks upstairs and have talked to them a little bit about their story. It's a new kind of drug company, but it's a drug company related to what we're doing in there. It's called biomanufacturing. You're taking natural products and turning them into higher value products, whether it's food, whether it's algae, whether it's fuel, anything, whether you're making hot sauce for the local community. There's a little bit on how they do it here. With the reason I'm providing you with a little bit of this background information, they have a Biosafety 1 lab, Biosafety 2 lab upstairs. They also have their office. Their company is growing. They have gone from just a handful of researchers to growing to 21 people by this fall. They would like to expand operations on campus. They would also like to donate a fully professional lab in the biofuels department. We've been a leading component in the industry. Everything is donated or cobbled together in there. So we're going to install a nice, beautiful lab that matches the labs upstairs with their support. The other company I want to talk about is Apogee Spirulina. That's our local small spirulina company. They're expanding their operations as per their contract with the school, and they have some offtake agreements selling outside. They're also hosting more clinics here this summer. Last summer they hosted an awesome clinic. Everybody came from out of state or out of country, and about 75% of them started projects when they went back. So it's a different form of education for us. It's kind of using our Innovation Center partners to create innovation here locally. This product's also used in some of the local companies here in town where you get your green drinks now. So he's coming along quite well. So these are the only two companies I wanted to follow up with tonight with you guys. Let me get this next slide here. We have a few next steps. We're going to upgrade the biofuel labs with the support from NTX Bio. So we have a fully functional lab space where it's safe. I'm supposed to teach 20 people in that lab. I can only get 8 people at that table. So we got to fix this. It's been a few years. The expansion of the spirulina microfarm, that's benefits. He runs multiple interns. I think he's written you guys a nice letter. I'm not sure if you received that. And then I'd like to make a request that we've talked about quite closely with our greenhouse program and other folks on campus, local partners in the community. I would like to establish a sustainable farm site on campus that we vet these new innovative people that are coming out of our programs, meeting with new industry. We've already had multiple people ask for this. I think it's about time that we move forward with that. We're not talking about setting up completely traditional ag farming. We're using an incredible amount of resources. We're talking about energy efficient ag farming. But we also need to respect our local community, and we have no dirt farming projects going on and need to meet those needs for our local community. We've been asked to do that. So that was my brief update on the many things that we're doing. Is there any questions from the board? Well, I got one more slide, I guess. Steve threw this in there. We've been now known as Welcome to the Lab of Enchantment. So everybody likes to put this up as we travel around.
Thank you for the opportunity. Any questions?
Okay, I have some. So the ecoponics, which we've talked about like several years ago, what is the actual status of that?
So Ecoponics is working with the city of Santa Fe. They actually found funding for the city of Atlanta, and they also are working in Paso Robles. So Santa Fe missed the opportunity to compete with them on the market. We worked closely with the city. The city didn't quite deliver, but they're including him on that economic opportunity zone, the RFP that's coming out in the next few weeks. So he's still trying to work with the city, still communicating with the city. Since we have our own greenhouse program on campus now, I think we have enough to manage. Well, it'd be nice to have an industrial partner out there when we're ready for that, for him to come.
But it's not happening at the moment.
No, he didn't. He spent $350,000 in New Mexico, did all the feasibility studies, got all the approvals from USDA, and it just didn't, you know, sometimes finances are short for people to start those projects.
So how do we find new partnerships?
Well, we're kind of limited on space right now on the campus, so we need to be more creative in how we create those partnerships. We have a couple offers with farming. We have multiple technology partners out there like the Farm Pod, Aquasource, Freight Spaces. So we do have partnerships. As the new greenhouse gets built out, we get the capital outlay money. One of our partners will be providing the cold storage and the food safety handling outside the greenhouse. So we're matching up ourselves with the proper partners at this point.
And so with these partnerships, our students have internship of facilities, like with the NTX Bio, they go in and they work in the lab?
So the last intern that worked for NTX Bio now works at Los Alamos, and he's in an engineering program. So they require a special kind of intern, but the intern that does it has special opportunities as he leaves. So all of those companies are required to have interns, use interns. So the way the farm pod operates on campus, the reason it's on campus, they pay for the intern 100% for the operations of that. We're not spending any resources to run that. That intern in turn is training the trainers be the next person to run that system.
So at the beginning, when you said you have 441 students, is that how many we've had, or what was that number?
That's the total averages that we've had over the last 3 years. So that's the number of students that we've had average for the last 3 years running.
So that means we've had an average of that every year?
We've had an average of that over the last 3 years, not every year. Over the last 3 years, we've had around that many students, an average of 3-year students.
So that's a 3-year number?
Yes.
Okay. And so what are we doing to recruit more students?
Everything we can. We go, I didn't even begin to get started with this one, but I think really communicating, I think as soon as people get to see what we're doing, they fall in love with it. But if you talk to these guys, we're not doing enough. We should be everywhere. It is one of those where you don't want to be known as the best kept secret when so many great things are going on. But we're using all of the traditional means, but there are other things that we need to do. And every chance we get, we're trying to get the press releases out or make sure that we're visible and present in the community as much as possible.
So I know this is maybe a marketing question, but at one point we were bringing high school and junior and senior students out here on the campus, and we take them through the trades and technology. That should excite people.
We still absolutely do, and in the last, absolutely, throughout the year, these guys give tours, Marcos brings students through. The good news is now we even have recruitment able to give the spiel, so that it's not necessary that we're always scheduled to do that tour. In the last 2 weeks alone, I have been present and have spoken at 3 graduation-related events talking about sustainability and then highlighting our programs. So anything we can do to get in front of these younger people, they're the ones who are about to graduate. By the way, how are you going to take your part in the future of our planet? And this is what we do at Santa Fe Community College. So it's really about getting out there often and early.
Beyond the recruiting efforts of the college, we've also reached out into the community, like the Indian School, every January during Convocation Week. We managed to host 125 sixth graders because of a champion on the Santa Fe Indian School campus that believes in what we're doing. We've been getting a lot of local homeschoolers that have been coming out doing tours of our campus. I think we had over 1,000 students in February alone come through the campus. And so when we're talking about recruiting methods, I think we do need to improve a little bit. I'd like to have the name and the interest and a follow-up of every student that comes through that building, because we do our best to sell it. We can't follow up with every single individual name. So there needs to be a structure for that.
And then last month, I got a cold call from a professor at in Florida, and she was going to come out to New Mexico with 11 female biology students, who are freshmen and sophomores. She wanted to see what we're doing. So actually, I was in Puerto Rico when that happened, when they came by. But I guess from the letters I got back and the thank yous, that it went very well. And 2 of the students actually want to quit their 4-year program and come here. And then while we were at in Puerto Rico, when we got done with our little workshop on how to make your campus sustainable, I had 2 faculty from the engineering program at Washington State University say that they wanted to quit their jobs and come work with us. So it's starting to get out there. We just and while we were there, 2 Caribbean University and the University of the Virgin Islands both approached and said that they would like to set up two 2+2 programs, one in agriculture and one in the microgrids. So I figured it'd be a pretty good sell if you could say you do your first 2 years here and your second 2 years in Puerto Rico. But we still have to, that's still got to be worked out, and we have to finish it. They have to rebuild their schools. But there's a lot of interest in setting up those kinds of programs.
Hello, I'm Ondine Frauenglass. I'm the lead technician for the Trades and Advanced Technologies Department, and I work closely with the Innovation Center. I also do curriculum development for these programs, and we are focused on online development for a lot of our programs, in which we will be able to offer the curriculum online, and then a 1 week or 2 week on-site training for students who can't be right here, and to reach out to the both our community and people from other areas. We have worked with the ATEC consortium, and they're getting a lot of interest in an introduction to seaweed course, which we are about to supplement with our microalgae course as well. So we're expecting that to get the word out as well.
We're going to grow seaweed next?
They grow seaweed. We want to.
Oyster?
Through the ATEC professors, one of them is a extension from Rutgers University. He flew out with 2 big bags full of oysters, and we had the world's highest oyster farm for a couple of years. And we had real Rocky Mountain oysters. But the thing is, we grow enough algae that conceivably we could use the brackish water in the state to grow oysters that don't have all the shellfish poisoning, and then we can sell to casinos. So we have one student who's very interested in that, and when she comes back from the summer, we're going to try and start growing oysters in the greenhouse.
Wow.
And she was one of those students that showed up with a marine biology degree and enrolled in one of our classes. So she's already got her 4-year degree.
Okay. Kathy?
Some quick follow-up questions for you on the programming. So when we look at across the top, the associates in applied science, the different degree areas and their certificates that you're offering, which of those programs has the greatest amount of enrollment? Where are the graduates being produced? Is there an area where we've got more concentrated student interest or graduation rates?
The biggest one right now is welding. Jake has a program that he's cranking out, all his classes are full. If he had twice as much space, he'd have twice as many students.
Really?
Yeah. There are not enough welders right now. I mean, if they leave with a certificate, they get the job. But Jake has worked out a deal with the union that if they get the certificate, they can go straight to, they can get a job, but they still have to get sponsored into the union, and they still have to do the 5-year apprenticeship. If they complete their associate's degree, they're automatically sponsored into the union, and it takes 18 months off their apprenticeship. So he's got a really big carrot for everyone finishing their thing. The other program that is taking off is the Controlled Environment Agriculture. Charlie and Pedro have 2 cohorts now, and those classes are full. And so we have a lot of people coming through. You know, I like to call them the lost children. They want to come and save the world, and they don't know what to do, and so we stick them in there, and then they start doing chemistry or biology or things like that they didn't think they were going to do. So those are the 2 biggest ones right now.
If I may, Chair Siegel and Member Keith, so in the order of welding, the Controlled Environment Ag, then it would be plumbing and HVAC next. Those are the highest enrolled. Where we have great need, and we've heard from the employers, is really in our construction trades. We are going to be, just this year alone, at a deficit in the state of approximately 100, close to just under 200 vacancies in our region for construction trade people who are experienced in contracting, and we don't see the numbers there. So when we look at that range and where people are going and where we need them, that's where things are somewhat playing out.
Madam Chair, I was just going to add that regarding the welding, the need for more welding graduates, we are going to add 5, I think we already have the 5 welding stations, and we're going to add those, put those in the space. That's part of our learning space improvements from our bond money, that we're going to add those. No, in this, now, right away, soon. Yes, yes.
Yeah, and the thing that I want to share with you with regard to just the benefits, so thank you, Dr. Cervantes, for pointing that out. As was stated, these students are hireable right out of the blocks. There is a need for them, but much like what Jake Lovato has done, which we're incredibly proud of that effort, because now it is translating to our plumbing and HVAC as well into our construction, is working closely with those unions and the professional accreditors, if you will. So they are actually getting apprenticeship hours towards their journeyman. When they are done with their associate's degree, they can apply those associate degree hours in their apprenticeship. So they are already earning much more than even if they would have had those hours going in at a basic apprenticeship level. Bless you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very illuminating.
Outstanding. Thank you. Wow, really was. Thank you for asking for it. I learned so much.
Okay, enrollment. One of our favorite topics. Not.
Okay, Chair Siegel, members of the board, President Cervantes, I present to you the summer enrollment report. I just want to call your attention to the fact that we've switched these columns that Board Member Gamble asked us to, so you're looking from left to right, starting with last year this time and then this year currently. So we are down 384 students in head count and 145 in terms of FTE. Credit hours, that's 2,178, and courses 8. And we have a "we miss you, please come back, why did you leave us" survey information that Yash has for us. I think Marcos and Todd are going to talk about re-recruitment a bit, and maybe the CRM as well. And then we're happy to sit for any questions you all have. Do you want to switch seats with me?
So, as all of you are aware, we have a strong partnership with our Santa Fe Community Foundation, who's been working on a pipeline of birth to career, or otherwise known as Opportunity Santa Fe. NPR and OB had an opportunity to collaborate with one of the working groups and trying to figure out the educational pipeline issue that exists within our community. To this end, we have partnered with Innovate Educate, a local nonprofit, to study why did some of our students leave. And so this is almost in partnership. If you look at this information, it supplements to some of the other surveys we've done in the past about, for example, this earlier today, we did go over the presentation on the wellness survey, and we've done the transportation survey and such. So what we have done was that we contacted around 2,000 degree-seeking students who left SFCC over the past 5 years, and asked them, and for those people who actually never completed an associate degree, and say, hey, why did that happen? The big takeaway from that was that it wasn't because, one of the biggest reasons why people said they left SFCC was they needed to work and make money. So 57% of students said that's their number one reason. They needed to make money. And because of that, later on in here, you find out that 68% said cost was not a primary factor for their decision to leave SFCC. But that doesn't mean the cost was wasn't a barrier, but they decided to leave because they needed to work. And so I'm going to skip through some of these things in interest of time, but it wasn't because of math or English. It wasn't because the class they took wasn't important or valuable to them. It wasn't because they didn't feel that they belonged here. You know, through our historical survey of our students, they always say they value the experience at SFCC, that they feel they belong here. It was really about a couple things, and one takeaway that we want to definitely communicate is that for the working adults who left, they said they wish there was more of an online and evening options for them to take courses. So another interesting thing is when we say, okay, so how often would you like to come to campus? And the response was they want to come to campus twice a week. That was the #1 ways of doing things. So when they say online, they may not mean that completely online. They might be more of a hybrid classes where there's an online component, but they still come on campus twice a week, perhaps in the evenings. And so this may be some of the things we may want to think about, having a program that's completely designed for working adults that are also designed for part-time students because they're working, right? So when we asked them if you were going to come back, would it be full-time and part-time? And most of them say part-time. So what this survey is telling us is that, and many of the written comments, they talk about how much they enjoy their time here. So what they're telling us is, but they need to find an option where they could just not quit their jobs, but still go to school. Another interesting information people said is they prefer the traditional 16-week course structure, and that is basically the summary of the "We miss you, please come back to SFCC" survey.
Do you think that's because that's what they know?
That might be it, yes. You know, I was surprised because I myself am currently enrolled in a distance education program for my PhD, and it is really designed to come once a month, going down to the NMSU campus and taking a class. I find it to be incredible benefit that I could do that, but perhaps people are not used to it. It's just because there wasn't a different means doesn't mean that that's not necessarily a good idea, but generally speaking, people seem to be, as you say, Dr. Romero, that there might be most used to the twice a week, 16-week course.
I don't think it's good enough.
Perhaps. That wasn't a question I asked, so I don't know.
Yes, Jack.
I noticed you mentioned the interest in online classes, but closely related to that was evening classes.
Yes.
5:30 to 10 o'clock. And that also seems to correlate with two of your charts. If you go back to, there you go, one more. There you go. That 34% left because the classes were not offered at convenient times, and then go forward one. And the classes that I needed were not offered or were canceled, 28%. So, and we've talked about this before, and we've had some updates, but in 25 words or less, can you tell us where we are on this class scheduling initiative?
So we have our class scheduling task force. We also have an evening, weekend, and online task force. So you've got these folks that are working on similar things, but also some different elements in your scheduling task force. So we have standardized the start times for classes. We have worked on adding evening, weekend, online classes so that students can finish certificates in that format, either in the evening or online. And many of those are in our health sciences area. If you'd like a list, Jenny may be able to help us list those off, or I can get that to you at a later time. I don't have that list in my head, but we have worked carefully to put those together, and then with marketing to get that information out. There's a landing page, and Todd will be able to tell us what the kind of the number of hits on that maybe, or at least from a past assessment of that. It's been a popular page for students to see when those evening, weekend, online courses are. And so these initiatives continue, and we have, here comes Jenny, business administration, we've got nursing assistant, certificate, computer hardware software certificate. We have computer and network security certificate, the fitness instructor training certificate, nutrition certificate, social media specialist certificate, and traumatic stress aid.
And what are these?
These are all offered in the evenings. Weekend online format. And they are ones that can be completed in anywhere from 1 to 2 or more semesters. Sorry, the computer's not cooperating. You know, it ranges from 16 credits to upward in the 20s.
Okay, then what are the next steps for these two task forces?
Right now is to continue looking at our offerings in terms of the evening, weekend, and online format. Also to look at the way we are scheduling our classes, the associate deans working together to make sure that we don't have overlap and that everything's being offered in a fluid way so that students aren't having trouble taking things in sequence. And that will be an ongoing effort.
And how often do they meet?
I don't know. I think they meet every other week, but I'll have to get that information for you. It's in the. Yeah.
Every other week?
So all these items are included in our strategic plan as a priority item. So the cross-sectional teams are working on a regular basis to and they come in and update the progress of what they're doing in their bi-weekly update to the president.
Yeah, I always get the feeling that there's two goals. When you're working on a strategic plan, the goal is to get a new strategic plan. When you're working on some element like we're talking about here of scheduling, the goal I see is to get better schedules, and not to get a new strategic plan. And so I'm always interested in numerical results and in what we've.
Sure.
What we can accomplish, what we have accomplished, what it might take to do better. If that's the M word, then we need to know about the M word, or whatever it is.
Right. And I can just say, Board Member Sullivan, that we do have these regular check-ins related to the KPIs having to do with the strategic plan, and I really feel like folks have not an additional strategic plan in mind, but the actual goals that have been set for those KPIs. I mean, those include our retention, our graduation rates. We have exciting information coming out on all of those fronts. And this scheduling project, task force, their work, and also the evening, weekend, and online group, these are ongoing and making progress all the time, and will be something that we'll continue to work on. I mean, all those pieces we've talked here before about our new online catalog, these are all coming together in ways that that are going to help students as we move forward, including the Common Course numbering that President Cervantes mentioned in her report. Lots of things happening at the state level that are going to facilitate students' ability to transfer with all of their credits. When you heard the HEC presentation and Robert Anaya and Megan talking about, articulation and facilitating all of that. They're all, it sounds like a lot and it is a lot, they're all intertwined in really interesting ways. And so I do feel like, in fact, this week on Tuesday at Executive Team, we had a strategic planning check-in on these KPIs for everybody. And so we're in kind of smaller groups every 2 weeks. And so this particular meeting, we heard everybody's updates on the strategic plan, their KPIs for the year. And it was amazing to see how much these intersect in a very positive and useful way, and to kind of talk about what each of us, in our groups are doing to work toward these. So,
my last question in this 25-word
I've already failed that, haven't I?
is how much more evening classes are we doing now than, say, last year or perhaps the year before?
You know, I'm going to have to get you a percentage
Just
for that.
give me a guess.
Oh, my God.
Twice as much? 25% more?
So
10 times as much?
even though I'm on camera and I'm going to be recorded, my best guess, if I was a betting man, is that we used to be around 20%. We're probably up to like 30% would be my guess in terms of online and weekend and evening class, if I had to guess.
So are you saying that 30% of the classes are now online or evening or weekend?
Yes, and
Okay.
or when I say online, it could be a hybrid kind of
Yeah,
online course
yeah.
too. So please keep that in mind. I'm not talking about purely online.
Okay, so you're putting in the online as in with the weekend classes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So online evening. So if I had
So of all of our classes that the college offers, hybrid, evening, and online, and weekends might be around a third,
1/3, if I had to guess.
if you had to guess, which we're not asking you to.
Yes, sir. So, but I'll
Okay.
be happy to provide that information in the future.
Yeah, I was more interested in what the difference is between, in other words, are we heading in the right direction that the students want us to?
It's regularly going. It's going up regularly every year because we're working towards that goal.
Okay, thank you.
And so, relating to this and the work we're doing, OP has created 3 reports to help us recruit additional students, which I want to share real quick with you. First one is a Cognos report that we have created, which is basically live data that people can now pull and access. Mason, you're so wonderful. Thank you so much. Would you click, since we're the conversation of trades and technology, sustainability was there. So I'm sorry, before we go down there, scroll up a little bit. So this is for the enrollment, the student enrollment information for the year 2018-2019. And so we had 75,000 student credit hours, and it represent around 8,000 distinct, unique students who are enrolled at our college. Now, it's unique, right? So students could have enrolled in the fall and the spring. They counted once. Fall, spring, summer, they counted once. So what we wanted to do was provide the college with the ability to see live data so that you can make advertisement and recruitment decision on the spot. So scroll down, and if you don't mind clicking on the trades and technology and right-click it, and click on the circle, that one exactly. You're fantastic. Thank you. Now we know from here, we could see that how much of the students are actually in the trades and technology area, and just like all the fantastic presenters before us said, you can see that welding is one of the hottest area, followed by control agriculture, which is the greenhouse, and then building, and you can see the HVAC and plumbing also all combined together. So what this does now is it gives us an ability to see where might be an area that we could focus our energy rather than doing a blanket recruitment campaign. And so the great news about this is it's based on the live student credit hours that are billed. So we could sort of see how we're doing basically on a daily basis. The data is always 1 day old, but we could find out on that level. So now I think marketing is armed with additional information there. Another report we just created kind of similar to this, but I can't show it to you because it's FERPA sensitive, is a list of individuals who have completed the application but never registered. Right, because there are students who actually complete the application, never registers, and now we have provided that information where people could pull that and then come up with different ways to recruit it. And then the third report, I'm hoping Todd could talk a little bit more about it, is the report where we are now seeing anybody who are 15 credit hours or less away from graduating with an associate degree. And so we could potentially target those students, and I'm sure Todd would talk a little bit more about it. But of course, one of the 2 biggest challenges that we're always facing is data integrity and the complexity in different kinds of customized recruitment campaigns. So I want to give it to Marcos and Todd to talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you very much, Yash. Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam President. So I think this is a great segue into what Yash is talking about regarding us trying to compete against work, employment, and what we can do to combat that. And what we're seeing is, at least to me, it's, am I going to put food on the table or am I going to go to school? And to me, that's a pretty easy decision. So how do we combat that? It's more than just telling students how great we are. It's more than just showing students these amazing facilities. There has to be some type of incentive to get these working students back to SFCC to ensure that they can complete their degree and we can get them an even better job, potentially even a better career. One thing that we're talking about, and this is our re-recruitment campaign, a potential re-recruitment campaign, and we hope that we receive the support of the board, is, as Yash was saying, we are going to look at students from the past 5 years that have 15 credit hours or less remaining. We're talking degree seeking, 15 credit hours or less remaining on their degrees from the last 5 years. And what we want to do is we want to see if we can entertain you with the idea of either giving them a scholarship or tuition waivers to ensure that they come back to SFCC, that they complete their 15 credits, and that they graduate. Now, if this sounds familiar, this also echoes our college promise. So we're really excited about taking on this next project. And the thing about low enrollment is that it forces us to really get creative and to come up with some new ideas that we have never tried here before. And this is something that we really hope we can gain the support of the board and the rest of the college. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Marcos. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Cervantes. Okay, I put together almost a quasi statement here because I know time is short and we have some important business to get to. But one of the questions I have here is how we pull this all together. This is a lot of information. It's like, okay, great, good ideas. Now let's do it. And I also acknowledge that people at colleges and universities across the country are kind of, in our area, are like tugging at their collars uncomfortably because of what's happening with enrollment. And so the way I see this is the details we've provided today are part of this kind of recalibration of college marketing and recruitment efforts on a foundational level. It's a shift away from what I consider kind of broad, passive, hard to measure marketing that's not very often very targeted. What we're working toward is targeted, relationship-based, and kind of customer service-oriented engagement with key populations. That's jargony, but it's basically saying we're meeting the students where they are. We're finding them so that when people come to us and they say, well, what is marketing doing for us? What is marketing doing for that? That, you know, we can offer solutions that have some real teeth. And that's a bit of a process. So phase one right now is, you know, embarking on this, what I've referred to is our CRM project. And so one of the things I'm happy to report is that OIT, we've just completed our charter, and they've reported that this tool that we spent some time researching will be available to us in July, hopefully in time for an aggressive push before fall enrollment. So I'm excited about that. That's real. I can stop telling you about this thing and come back with some, you know, tangible results in the near future. And currently, aside from embarking on these pilot projects, like recruitment is an example, I think, of a pilot project. We're drafting a comprehensive marketing and communication plan that includes a really wide range of tactics that range from traditional to new. So it's not like we're just saying goodbye to all the old stuff. That still plays a part, but we have to integrate best practices, get into the things. And it's not about talking about Facebook or talking about any one thing anymore. It's, again, back to that first point. It's how do we pull all this together in a comprehensive and a coherent way so that we can communicate it and it's based on empirical evidence. So it's hands-on process, but this means a really, really thorough inventory of every place that we're touching students. They're at college fairs. We have student tours. Someone mentioned today, I think it was with the trades and tech, I want the contacts of every single person that come through on that tour. I couldn't agree more. To me, that's basically, and which we do gather now, but it's all about putting them into buckets and just the more we can kind of systematize that information, then the better. So I think this process is not going to, we're going to be able to provide wider and deeper coverage to our prospective students, but it's going to enable us to measure the effectiveness of our campaigns. In doing this, here's the magic, and this is what's the kind of secret thing behind all this, is that when you go through this exercise, you start to be able to truly measure the return on investment of what you're doing. That's a common saying in marketing. If you're not measuring, you're not marketing. And so it's not just about doing this stuff, it's about self-reflection and looking at our efforts and saying, okay, cool, well that, was a 0.71 on a ROI, cost per mil thing, and that was great, and let's do this more and not that thing. That didn't yield results. And so, we've kind of done that, but it's been soft. And so now we're moving, and I'm talking about the marketing side, not to conflate that with the really, really great work that boots on the ground and reporting that recruitment is doing. And so we get the most bang for our buck. So thank you for letting me share that.
Okay, questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Dealing with retention, which is a part of our enrollment issues. And I know I have a couple of personal experiences with young attendees here at the community college in their early 20s, one of whom left, another of whom is still here. Neither of those could get a good sense of where they want to go, of what am I doing here? What are the opportunities? What am I capable of doing? What do I like? What are my strengths? Where should I go with my life? And I'm concerned that we don't provide adequate guidance to these early students in their first 2 semesters in that regard. I learned at the work session today that we have that facility on a voluntary or on-call basis, and that I would hesitate to say that probably many students don't know about that. It seems that we should have a process, I hate to use the word mandatory, but certainly as a part of the overall assessment and evaluation of a student and their, the same thing you do when you decide whether they're going to get into a pre-100 course or they're going to get into a 100 course, that says, where are you going and where do you think you're going and where would you like to go? And if you don't know the answers to any of those questions, that's okay, because here's some things, and let us take a look at your interests and give you some general guidance and help you with that. Now, I get the impression that we don't do that. Now, tell me that I'm wrong.
Member Sullivan, we can always improve on what we do, but we do have advisors who work with students in that regard. Certainly we have the counselors. That is some of the work that they can do, but it depends on, our counselors are really mental health counselors. And so they can have some of those conversations, but also our advisors can have some of those conversations. What are your interests? What did you have in mind? What kind of courses would you like to take? That's part of the whole Meta Majors initiative that we are working on to help get students sort of in the ballpark of what their interests might be so that they can do some exploration and narrow that down and really head off on the path that they're going to stay on for the rest of their academic career here at SFCC. But we also have our first year student success courses, our new student orientation. So there are a lot of different places, depending on how involved a student may be with our student development office, where students they encounter these kinds of discussions are opportunities to have these conversations. Now, as I say, we can always do better, and it's good for us to hear this information because it means maybe we're not reaching everyone, and we need to continue to put systems in place and measures in place to be able to connect with every single student. But we do have, we reach out to students at key times in the semester. We are looking at going forward ways to get grades, information on, from faculty having to do with our students so that we can have outreach to students very early in the course of a semester, in the course of the class that they're taking, so that we can intervene and help them succeed in the class, catch them when they're first having trouble, not when it's too late. So there are opportunities throughout their experience from the moment they arrive, even before they arrive, when they're when they're talking with Marcos and they're getting geared up, hopefully, to come here, where these conversations can happen. And we just need to continue to look for other places for those to happen and make sure that they are happening.
I think maybe, and maybe we need to do this at the high school level. And I'm certainly showing my age, but when I was in high school, all of the students were required to take something called the Cooter Preference Test. Certain people here on the board are chuckling because they remember that. Okay, the Cooter Preference Test was a terrible test. Nonetheless, the idea was to get to high school students and try to determine where their skills were, but it wasn't. But not aptitude in terms of are you good mechanically, but where are your interests being? And I guess I'm wondering, somehow we could do. And I remember a question on that test, and one of those questions was, would you rather paint the inside of a house or the outside of a house? And I never could figure the answer to that one. I didn't want to do either. I didn't want to paint either the inside or the outside, but that wasn't one of the choices, But my point being that the students that I was talking about, the examples, were not having trouble academically. Right. They were having trouble direction-wise. Academically, they were and are doing all right, but they just don't know where they're going. And I'm just thinking that we have all these various resources that we know about, or that you know about. I'm not sure that they know about it. And enough said on that. I hope that we can think about that.
I appreciate that, Board Member.
And I was thinking that maybe since you had asked earlier about a career test or a career assessment inventory, if maybe it would be possible to have our career department come and actually do a presentation of what they have available for students in order for them to explore what careers they might be interested in and how they get that information to students to come and take the inventory. So we could do that for you.
Thank you.
And another point to that, Board Member Sullivan, your point is well taken. I appreciate it, because when Marcos and I, through our collaboration with Santa Fe Community Foundation, talked to the high schools, they were saying, well, even high school might be too late. So how can we work together, Santa Fe Public Schools and Santa Fe Community College, to start exploring ways where students might be exposed to different career options in middle schools, and then make sure that there's some sort of communication there. So we've actually had a couple promising discussion about collaboration in that area, and we'll be happy to report back in the near future on that.
And Madam Chair, Madam President, members of the board, Board Member Sullivan, at the Santa Fe Public Schools right now, Santa Fe High School, Capitol High School, there is what is called College Plaza. And we work closely with the College Plaza when we have our space there. What the College Plaza does is they offer options on colleges, college programs such as SFCC and UNM. But what they also do is they have somebody, her name is Missy Goudoulet, and she's retiring, but there's also other folks that work in the College Plazas that are giving something very similar to what you're talking about in regards to where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself in career? Where do you see yourself for college? So they do those. I don't think it's mandatory that the students take these in high school, but they definitely are available. Madam Chair.
seems to me that at some point one has to allow for developmental experience. And it is perfectly okay for a student not to know what they want to do, for a student to need to explore a whole range of options. And I think to the point of getting down to the middle school and asking students to pick a career, it's far too early. I mean, even though we have, you know, in many ways, students perhaps at a younger age pick their careers in another time and place. I think there is a worry that we do not allow students to develop their interests, to develop their potential, to explore a variety of things, to fail at a couple of things, and then learn from those things. So I think, you know, we have to be really careful that we don't pigeonhole students into a career that they're going to hate for the rest of their lives.
I agree 100% with that, Madam Chair. I think what happens in reality is that, and that's what college is about. College is about exploration, and I couldn't agree more. What happens, what appears to be happening, is that at a certain point, the students do that, they thrust about, and they get discouraged because they say, where am I going? What am I doing? You know, what, you know, I like this kind of course, I like that kind of course, I don't like that, but what am I, what's my direction? Where am I? This is, it's not cohesion, it's not coming together for me.
That's where we need to be here to support them in that.
Yeah, but during that process of getting there, that's okay. Let them pass and fail, let them feel their way, let them do that. But we have to be there at that critical point where suddenly they say, I don't know what's going on here. I'm going to go, you know, work at a restaurant. And that's the point we should be there.
Absolutely.
And that's going to differ for every student, of course.
Sure. And I think in many ways we are there. From our faculty in the classrooms, these conversations happen between our students and their faculty in their classes, as well as the advisors, the counselors, you know, the way we reach out to students at critical times of the semester. But as you say, we can absolutely improve. You know, there's always room for improvement. So we just have to keep looking for when those critical points are and make sure that we're there at that right moment. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just quickly, before we move on, I just want to say thank you to the team for talking to us this evening about the innovations and getting more data, more survey data about what our students really need. You know, nothing makes my skin crawl worse than reading all those stories about proprietary schools and that students pay 50% more, sometimes 100% more, than what they would be paying at this college that has such fabulous resources for them. But I also, you know, when I read that, I think we do have to take a step back and ask ourselves why. Because those schools are doing something right. Their enrollments, they're going great guns. Students are enrolling in them and making the choice to pay that much more. And why are they doing that? And I think some of those answers may be in because I could do it online and I could do it at night and on the weekends because I've got a family to feed, I've got to keep a roof over my head, and it was my only option to do that. So I think the more we can look at ways to innovate to meet their needs, the better off we are for everybody. So thank you for all the hard work that I know goes into that.
All right, thank you. Okay, the Faculty Senate report.
We made it to tab B.
Yeah. We had our last meeting of the semester. We had our last meeting of the semester on May 10th. A lot of it was kind of end of the year thing, putting together who are going to be the members of the General Education Committee that was created, who are going to be the faculty representatives on strategic planning over the summer, and we took care of all that business. But we also, at the last governing board meeting, a number of faculty were very concerned about what they thought was, and this may have been just very innocent, but people took great offense to a non-faculty group looking at what might be the academic standards and what might be the admission standards into various courses. And so I have a statement from the Faculty Senate that was drafted before the meeting. There was some concern, I guess, that there was discussion of Yash and Marcos looking at what are going to be the qualifications to get into various courses, and that was part of the meeting here, and a lot of people were very concerned that any kind of admission standards or entry into courses is a very much primacy of faculty, and faculty need to be heavily involved in that. So I'm going to read to you the statement that came up. And what the statement is: all matters related to teaching and academic standards are the responsibility of faculty. Curricular standards for course prerequisites and placement are essential for effective student learning. While administrative and student support personnel, of course, have roles to play in establishing and carrying out the processes used for assessing student readiness for various courses, teaching faculty are most familiar with course curricula and academic progressions, and therefore have primary authority in 1, establishing benchmarks for course placements and prerequisites, and 2, the assessment of whether a student's knowledge and skills meet those benchmarks. If other college personnel have questions, suggestions, or concerns about course placements or prerequisites, and such personnel should begin by bringing them to the Faculty Senate for referral to the Curriculum Committee. Attempts by personnel other than faculty to change course prerequisites or placements not only violate foundational standards of academic freedom and faculty leadership in setting academic standards, but also have a significant impact on teaching and learning in order to maintain academic integrity. Academic matters are the responsibility of faculty. And I think with the discussion that was brought up last time was largely to do with how we're bringing students in from the various high schools and what courses the students are being placed into. And several of the faculty took away from that there was a group that did not involve faculty that was going to be looking at how can we make it easier for students to transition into the college, and whether or not we're going to move away from having remedial courses here. And so I think that was where the conversation came, and what the intent of the board and what the direction that was going, I'm not entirely clear. But that was the concern of the faculty, and they wanted to make it absolutely clear that any looking at prerequisites or how students, what the minimum requirements for students to get into various courses at the community college really are something that the faculty feel are very important for them to play a critical role in.
Okay.
Can I just say that I don't believe that conversation occurred at a governing board meeting. There was a conversation in the task force for the College Promise where we were exploring a variety of strategies that are used nationwide. And one of the strategies was multiple measures, but we weren't selecting one over the other or saying that the current strategies should not be used. So I just wanted to say that that's the only conversation that I know of in which we were exploring a number of ways that we could identify the students who might participate in a College Promise program when we have one, because this is the task force that the board asked us to put together and to begin looking at possible strategies and organizational plan. Once we have a College Promise, there's a long ways before we get there. We have to identify money. Of course, the legislature didn't come through, et cetera. But in no way were we trying to take away the responsibility and the role of the faculty members. I
And
want to
it has
emphasize
sometimes
that.
happens. I suspect that there was no nefarious intent there, but it definitely struck a chord. A lot of faculty who don't typically come to Faculty Senate did attend and were very passionate about it. So.
But I just wanted to emphasize it didn't happen at a board meeting. It didn't happen at a board meeting at all.
It was presented by the members as something that had happened at the last board meeting, but it may have been this task force meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a quick comment. So I just want to say, it's an issue that also strikes a chord with me. So I would love to have the faculty come to the table and engage in that conversation. And I'm so glad that the faculty is interested in doing that, because I do think there are other schools across the country, not only community colleges, that are having that conversation. And there are even four-year and research universities who have been out front on this. When I look at the numbers of standardized tests and how they are split among socioeconomic divides, I think there are a lot of studies out there that say that the standardized tests that we use and that other colleges across this country and placement mechanisms that they use definitely have bias. And I think, we said this today in an earlier meeting, right? Santa Fe Community College is known for being out in front of the curve and being at the forefront of education and taking some risks in terms of doing what's right for our students and our community. And I feel pretty passionate about the fact that doing so in this area is right for our community and our students.
And I did want to also add that this task force has been very small. We've had 3 meetings, and at the last meeting, we did indicate that we'd like to invite faculty to join. So that request is going to be going out through the deans to see if faculty would like to join the task force.
And I know that Dr. Gamble has come to the Senate to present and talk about the College Promise program. So, and something we're very, and I do know the current system, the AccuPlacer, many times I'll have students come in my role as an advisor, I have to tell them, no, I don't think you should take remedial math. I think you should study before you take the AccuPlacer and try it again, because I think very often people who have been, especially a lot of our students who've been away from school for a while, come in and take a placement test cold, thinking that they're really there, but it's very easy to end up in remedial math or remedial English, even though you may have the skill set, but maybe not the practice.
Well, as Board Member Keith indicates, it is a flawed test. Most really outstanding community colleges are doing away with them. They are going to multiple measures, and that involves not just faculty, but it involves advisors, it involves people from across the institution to look at it involves high school people in terms of looking at what is their history, what are their study habits, what are their interests, as Board Member Sullivan was suggesting. So multiple measures is really a much more accurate way, and I think personally the sooner we get away from testing an AccuPlacer and those kinds of singular measures, the better.
And I think the faculty agree. We just really want to make sure that we have an important seat at the table in discussing what those measures are.
Of course faculty have a role in that, but so do advisors, and so do other people who have knowledge of students.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff?
Good evening, Chair Siegel, members of the board, President Cervantes. First of all, the Staff Senate would like to formally thank Dr. Cervantes for her service and her support this last couple of years. It's been really impactful for us, particularly with the support on moving up the timeline on the Common Class study so that that could be addressed in this year's budget. And we do want to continue to ask you to encourage OHR to move forward with the PAN form and providing us with a timeline so that we can help support that as well. We are working on our annual staff appreciation event, which will be held June 7th And I look forward to that. We usually have very good attendance, and people actually have a time to just sit down and relax and talk to each other, where we don't necessarily do that during the school year. And then the other item are elections are ongoing. Voting closes on Friday, and so we'll be announcing results next week for the chair position and the communications officer, the co-chair, excuse me.
Okay.
And I stand for questions.
Questions?
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jack.
Quickie, seemed to be a little bit of discussion and perhaps difference of opinion on professional development.
Yes, sir.
Could you, again in 25 words or less, elaborate on that for us?
How the professional development days are organized has been a bit of an evolving process here, and I think it continues to be. And so there were opinions on, for example, whether we should have fun things versus professional development that meets other kinds of needs. I don't think any conclusions were come to, but we wanted to give some feedback to Terrence because that function has now moved into HR, that now that we have a long-term director. There are certainly priorities for this fall that we'll be competing, and we'll see how that goes.
And what would your suggestion be? I mean, you representing the staff.
I do think the last couple have been really well received, with a focus on student mental health and student and staff mental health. The afternoon sessions, there's a perception that faculty are leaving because they're not taking attendance anymore. I don't personally know whether that was true or not. I was, again, holed up in my office writing the systems portfolio for the HLC. But I think anything that enriches our jobs probably it would be the focus that we would recommend. The fun activities are fun, but when you're taking time away from work to do those kinds of things on the workday, I think most of the staff feel like it should be more enrichment kinds of activities. Is that fair to say? I'm trying to be diplomatic here.
Right. Thank you.
So are fun activities not intended to be team building activities?
I don't know that they're designed that way, to be honest with you. One year I did a drop-in group with handwork, and so we had people doing embroidery and people knitting, and we're team building in the sense that we're spending personal time together, but it's not directly work related. I'm not sure pickleball is directly work related, and that's always extremely popular. So there's a little bit of a tension between those kinds of things, and I don't think we've really come to a resolution on what's better at this point.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yay, pickleball.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have no student government report. On to the consent agenda. Now, we're okay to leave catering on campus in the consent agenda?
Let's see.
No questions about that? We discussed it at the work session?
Yes, we did.
Okay, can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're getting close to the good stuff.
This was all good stuff.
Yes, it was.
This was all good stuff. Lots of hard work going on out there that we appreciate the opportunity to see what folks are doing in the trenches.
Can you just give us a very brief overview, since we discussed this in the Finance Committee?
Yes, Madam Chair, board members, President Cervantes. In front of you, you have the reports for the end of April 30th, 2019. And at this point in the year, we're about 83% of the fiscal year complete. At the end of April, we had operating bank account balance of totaling out to be 8.5 million. And in the prior year, we had 5.7 million in the operating bank account. That's a year-to-year improvement of 2.8 million. Tuition and fees revenue have been down right around 8%, 8%. As I've reported earlier in the recent months. And in April, they total out to be down 8% at a total of 6.8 million, and that's a decrease from the prior year of 624,000. Local mill levy appropriation revenue is about 13.8 million and is up by 11%. That's up 1.3 million compared to last year. State appropriations revenue is totaling out to be 8.4 million at the end of April, and that's an increase of 5% and an increase of about $400,000. If you look at ING revenues, they are up in total by about $1 million. That's up by 4% and total out to be 29.1 million to the prior year. On the expense side, expenses are down 216,000, down 1%, and total out to be 27 million. ING compensation's down 2%, and it's down $408,000, totaling out to be 20.3 million. If you look at the Public Service Fund, our financials at the end of April look promising here, where you see the Kids Campus Fund totaling out to have $84,000 of net income. That's combined with about $55,000 from the conference center for net income. And with the Higher Education Center, we're totaling out to have a total net income of about $159,000. So that's in pretty good shape. As we discussed yesterday, our receivables look like they're in, at the normal levels that we see earlier in the fiscal year. So with that, I can stand for any questions that you might have.
Questions? We have a motion to approve the financials.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the financials for April 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Capital projects. We've also had a detailed presentation on this. at
Good
our
evening,
finance.
Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Cervantes. Yes, thank you. We've discussed this. This will be the third discussion. I am just going to briefly relate the capital projects forms. The priority 1 form, and these are the state forms that will be submitted to the state higher education department by statute, June 1st. And they will also be heard at the state higher education summer hearings in the latter part of July 29th. So the priority 1 project request is for $6 million. The total funding request is, total project cost is $6 million. The total funding request from the state is $4.5 million. The total match funding from Santa Fe Community College would be $1.5 million, which meets and equals to the $6 million total project cost. That's priority number 1. I just also wanted to make a quick statement to you. I've just been notified by a lot of our vendors. We're on a communication with them on a day-to-day basis, our architectural and engineering firms, and it appears that once these tariffs take place in the U.S., that we're going to see steel go up at least 30%. So with regards to our construction projects, prices are going to go up. That's priority number 1. And I wanted to mention to one of our board members who is not present now, but I'll make the statement. I did get clarification on that diagram for our microgrid, and it's my understanding that the stamp drawings aren't part of the investment grade audit, which is what we're doing right now, so that's really a schematic. They occur after the governing board approves our IGA, and once we get a state approval, then the final stamp drawings will be provided, and they are going to be provided and submitted to the CID, State Department, and Burns Engineering, which has an Albuquerque office, will actually stamp the drawings. So getting on to our priority 2 project, that project, get my glasses out here so I make sure I read these numbers correctly. That is a $5 million total project cost. The total funding request from the state is $3.75 million. Total matching funding from Santa Fe Community College would be $1.25 million from our local general obligation bond for a total project cost of $5 million. So I ask for approval on the priority 1, priority 2 projects to submit to Higher Education Department. And at this point, I stand for questions.
Any questions?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Now we have to
Thank
wait
you.
for Jack to come back.
And good luck, at the hearings.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck.
Get us a lot of money. Yeah. Right, right. Okay, Jack is back.
Thank you.
Martha's gone.
No, she's
There
back.
she is.
I didn't see him coming back.
All right. So our next item is approval of the collective bargaining agreement. And I just have a little statement to read. So Santa Fe Community College and the faculty union have, after many hours in negotiations and process, come up with an agreement on a collective bargaining agreement. The agreement addresses faculty compensation for both fiscal year 2019 and fiscal year 2020, and the management workload issues important to perform the mission of the college. Because the agreement, the agreement was, I can't even read my own typing. The agreement that was negotiated provided the faculty union with a raise of either 1 step or 3% if off the step matrix for FY 2019. Because the amount of time it has taken to negotiate the agreement, the faculty will realize this for beginning the month of May. For the next year, we had considered the 4% increase requirement that was signed into law by the governor, and that would be in conjunction with maintaining the existing pay structure for the faculty. For FY20, the agreement provides each bargaining unit member a 2-step raise if on the step matrix, or a 5% increase if off the step matrix. The FY 2020 increase goes into effect with the 2019-2020 faculty contracts begin in the fall or at FY20. So that's just a summary for the public of what we have done over the last many, many, many months.
2 years.
Or years. So can we have a motion?
Move for approval, Madam Chair, of the collective bargaining agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just want to note for the record briefly that I think this is a positive step forward for all of us, and I'm pleased that we have come to an agreement.
Yes. Anyone else? I think we all are. All right. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, our next item. And thanks to everyone who was part of the negotiating team on either side. And we get to move forward with our new president with a contract in hand. So thank everyone. Thank all of you. All right, our next item is approval of salary adjustments. So given the legislative mandate that the public institutions of higher education were to give all faculty and staff a 4% increase, and the college's desire not to distribute existing, to disturb existing pay schedules and structures, in conjunction with our desire to maintain equity between the pay groups, the bargaining unit and the non-bargaining unit faculty and the staff, the board has reviewed the budget and determined that it is in the best interest of the college to do a pay raise for non-bargaining unit staff, faculty in the amount of 5% rather than the previous 4%. Do you want to say anything, Nick?
Yeah, Madam Chair. If the board does approve this, is it the board's intent, because we did have a prior compensation plan approved during our April 29th budget meeting. And I think that this agenda item is to sort of revise that. Is it the board's intent to fund this adjustment out of the essentially the payroll contingency that the board had approved in April? This change would basically increase expenses by about $238,000 for the entire institution. And so just want to make sure that the finance office knows exactly what line item we're talking about in terms of doing this.
Linda, I have a question.
That is the one. Yes, Martha.
So what does that do to our reserve? Anything?
No, nothing. We had, in the original budget, well, the budget that was passed for FY20, we had an allocation that was, anticipating a compensation study, and so that's what we would be looking at utilizing in terms of doing this.
Thank you.
Questions?
So a quick question. At some point, so right now we have a category of funds that we can take it out of in the budget to even it up, and that the budget office knows that. Eventually, will we have to do a bar and move those dollars into compensation areas in our budget?
I don't think so. I think that this board, as long as we're all clear on it, as of today, we can just, it's on the record, it's public, that we would be utilizing that allocation to do this.
Great, thank you.
Okay, can we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, anything? Do we need to discuss the student records? No, we're not doing that.
No, I thought
Wait till next month.
We're going to wait till next month, right. Sorry, thank you. Okay, under board reports, anybody? So we need to have a retreat with our new president sometime soon after she comes in. So she's starting July 1, sometime end of July, or you're not going to be in town?
After July 27th.
Early August?
Early August is fine.
I think it's helpful for her to have
Have a little bit of time?
Yeah, get her feet on the ground.
Okay.
Maybe even 2 board meetings before we have a retreat.
Well, is August too soon?
Well, we'd have one in July, maybe early September. Well, September, when does school start?
September is,
It's about the 3rd week of August it starts.
Are we going to take July off?
Yeah, I think you usually take July off.
We were going to take July off, weren't we?
I mean, I don't know.
I would think
I'm gonna take it
September
off.
at the earliest.
I kind of feel like I would rather do it sooner rather than later, and I don't know that maybe we structure it in a way that we have maybe a half day or a morning session to just talk about priorities for the board, and then have a longer planning session once she's got her feet on the ground and has been here for a while. In September, a longer one at that point.
That would work. as long as we don't have a full-fledged, long-day retreat with her being so new that it's.
Well, I think it's important for us to share our.
Yes, I agree with that.
Our
But a half a day, I think, would do that.
Okay, so why don't we try to find a day in August like a Saturday, I think, for Kathy and people that work.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So, mid-August or so. Okay,
What about July?
so are we gonna have a meeting in July? I think we had one last year.
Well, I think we took 1 month in the summer off. It was either July or August.
I thought we had a July meeting.
We may have.
We had one because we had something,
Something was pressing.
yeah, something was pressing, but I don't know, I mean, Celia probably knows better, and Nick maybe, and
I thought you were off one
Margaret.
of the months, but I can't remember which
Well, we
one.
did December, I thought, off.
We always do these,
July is-
we always combine December and November because of Thanksgiving.
Well,
Should we wait and see what business there is?
yeah, let's wait till June to decide if we're having a July board meeting,
that's a good idea.
because we may want to have one. All right, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries, yay.
Good, you got it, I'm so glad. Thank you, Margaret, thank you, Nick, thank